That background was taken from the Global Oil Outlook report presented by the OPEC Secretary General, Mohammed Sanusi Bakendo. Now we have guests to discuss matters arising from that report and other related issues. Let's welcome to our studios this morning, again, Dr. Timothy Okon, who is a petroleum economist and managing partner, Tenno Energy Resources. Dr. Tim Okon, delighted to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much for having me.
And also with us in this conversation, this time joining us from our Lagos Network Center, is Odion Omofoma. He's an energy expert. Odion, delighted to have you this morning.
Thank you once again, and good morning, Nigerians.
All right, and via Zoom from Ghana is Professor Wumi Iledere, Professor Emeritus in Petroleum Economics, Center for Energy Studies, Louisiana State University, and Executive Director, Emmanuel Bohan Foundation for Petroleum Economics, Policy Advocacy and Research, Abuja. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning to my friend Dr. Okon as well.
Also from Awari via Zoom is Engineer Alex Nain. He's the MD CEO, Gakmok Nigeria Limited, and ex-Chevron management staff and former African Regional Director, SPE International, and honorary member of SPE. It is glad to have you with us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning. It's a pleasure being with all these guys I'm seeing on the screen for a very long time. Okon, Wumi, and several others. Good morning to everybody.
All right, gentlemen, our pleasure to have you all with us as we discuss the global oil outlook. Of course, we do know that the outlook will have policy implications. It will also have investment implications. But let's begin with Dr. Tim Okon for the benefit of our viewers who are not oil experts. What does this global oil outlook mean? And in indicating what it means, what are those key points that we should flag at this stage?
Thank you very much. I think the important information to be garnered from the OPEC perspective, which is broadly consistent with a position that most other observers hold, is really threefold. The first is that we are not out of oil. And the message is that non-OECD countries, and what does non-OECD, the Organization for Economic, or non-developed countries, those who are developing, require oil in their economies. So there is no need for panic per se, but we need to recognize that for the OECD countries, oil demand will go down. That's an important message. Secondly, he did speak about gas, and you know, Nigeria has been shifting its focus now on gas, but focus on gas and the three key areas. You talk about petrochemicals, you also talk about gas conversion industries, etc. Then there is a third, which is the transportation sector. Post-pandemic, which is really the huge slump, was that in a lockdown situation, nobody was going anywhere. So he mentions aviation, for example, growth in aviation. That will come back, and some of the details in the forecast include a potential 4.2 million barrel a day increase in 2022. And what that implies is that some of the shut-in production of 9.5 million would actually now come back into play. So the final implication would be simply that if demand picks up, etc., prices are likely to hold. And when prices hold, the challenge now is that how do you invest to bring production? And The additional message I would like to point out is that we still need, he mentions all energy sources, and some of the crises you have in Europe that has to do with the failure to recognize some of these dynamics in which you look at all the energy sources that are available to power an economy. Beyond the rhetorics about energy transition, reality is dawning on a lot of people that fundamentally you still need fossil fuels to power the world economy, especially non-OECD countries.
All right. Now, let's go over to Professor Wumi Ladere, who is reaching us via Zoom from Ghana. I take it that you also listened to the OPEC Secretary General, reel out, the outlook of oil. He made one indication that all energy sources have actually increased in terms of growth, but yet that oil still maintains its lead. Let's get your take on the general outlook as he presented. All right, we seem to be having glitches with that signal. We'll likely return to Ghana to see if we can get through to Professor Iladere make his opening comments. But for now, let's go to Odion Morpherman, who is an energy expert in our Lagos studios. Odion, I just asked a question with respect to the fact that other energy sources have grown, according to the OPEC General Secretary or Secretary General, and I want to get your own take with respect to what he read out. And again, oil remained central, with respect to provision of energy globally. What do you make of, the information he just delivered to the world on Tuesday?
Thanks very much. My take on the report in general is that oil still maintains its dominant position amongst the various fuel types. And we have a couple of fuel types. We have the oil, we have natural gas, we have the nuclear energy, renewables, and even the hydros. So it's interesting to note that despite like Dr. Okun said, the rhetorics on energy transition, oil is projected to still be the dominant fuel type for till 2045 and beyond. But that is not to say that there is no transition happening. And I think if you looked at the OECD countries, their share of renewable energy will grow from 2-point-something% to about 10. Then in terms of other energy types, gas also will increase. Luckily, Nigeria is now focused on developing our gas resources. The minister and other NNPC personnel have always stated that Nigeria is a gas country, not necessarily an oil country. So we see the NNPC in the right direction, focusing on the development of gas, and that is good for our energy use. But long and short, what the report points out to is that there will be growing, energy demand is growing. Energy demand will have to be met by a mix of oil, fossil fuels, and non-fossil fuels. And for the projected future, up to 2045, oil will still remain the dominant fuel type, even though its share of the percentage share of amongst fuels would reduce, but just a marginal reduction. What does that mean for us here in Nigeria? Should we still be focusing on oil exploration within Nigeria, or we should now maximize transition into gas? I think that's something that maybe as we progress in the conversation, we'll have that discussion. But I think we're on the right track in terms of trying to develop our gas resources, utilizing more gas. but oil still remains, from OPEC's perspective, the dominant fuel type that isn't going away anytime soon.
All right, thank you very much, Odion Mofoma. We will return to you later on in the course of the conversation. Let's check out Professor Wumi Ledare again and see if his audio glitch has been cleared up now. Professor Wumi Ledare, we couldn't hear you earlier after my colleague Kirian posed his first question to you. But let's just begin by asking you what your view is in general with respect to the global oil outlook presented by the OPEC Secretary General.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me now. Let me know. But I think if you look at the outlook, there are assumptions that are embedded in it. And there are three assumptions, basically, when you look at world oil outlook. It begins with population growth. And then the second thing is industrialization. And then the third thing is climate change. And the climate change aspect is what OPEC tried to emphasize, the assumption of electric vehicles. Now, if you look at the reduction in oil demand from the OECD point of view, it is tied onto transportation using electricity. And OPEC's assumption is very valid. You are looking at 2.6 billion vehicles on the road, and they are thinking in terms of 460 million electric vehicles. These are assumptions that have stochastic implications. And then, so that's from the demand aspect. And that's why you saw the reduction in OECD demand for oil. It is tied to basically being able to replace transportation vehicles, fossil fuel vehicles with electric vehicles. Technology adoption is not as easy. So I don't see a situation in which the focus of OPEC would be less than what they have. I actually foresee a possibility of needing almost 110 million barrels of oil per day. OPEC currently estimated it to be about 109 million barrels per day, because the assumptions are not necessarily as realistic as the OECD people want to believe. Now, when you look at industrialization and population, and if you look at what they're actually trying to replace is electricity generation with fossil fuel. Oil is not a participant in that. If you go to China, it's a small fraction of oil that is used for electricity generation. So what you are looking at is concentrating on transportation. And I see a focus from OPEC in which we're still going to, the outlook for supply, we still have oil over 50 to 53% of global energy need. Because where oil would be required is where the population centers are in the world. So I don't see any panic with respect to the relevance of oil going forward. Because most of the assumptions that you are going to displace oil in transportation are, in my opinion, and according to others, is just dream, not reality. Technology cannot just be transformed easily the way people are looking at it. And just in closing remarks so that others could speak, in 2005, the world was thinking that oil would not be necessary because of what they call carbon fabric. The composite material will replace oil going forward. This is 2021, and oil supply is still accounting for over 54% of global energy need. And fossil fuel together is accounting for almost 81% of global energy need. That is 15 years ago's prediction. So let us fasten our seatbelt. Yes, the energy transition is here to stay, but I don't see any much dent in global oil requirement by 2050. I still think it's more of a dream than reality. But hey, time will tell.
All right, time will tell, and my take away from what you just enunciated is that there's no panic in terms of the relevance of oil in the entire energy mix. All right, thank you. Let's get to Engineer Alex Lane, MD, Gamcock Nigeria Limited. Let's get your own perspective, of this presentation by OPEC, because of course a number of points have also been raised by the previous speakers, to that effect. What's your view? Do we have a panic, or do we think that in the course of between now and 2045, that nothing will happen that will make oil to some extent irrelevant in the entire energy mix?
For this opportunity, it is like a game that is going on. As students way back 74, 75, we were told in 50 years' time, the oil will not be relevant, it will finish, dry up, and all that. All this, they're all gone. So we're in a different stage. My concern about what OPEC is presenting is showing us that in Nigeria, we still have hope. So I will concentrate more on how we develop our oil and gas to be able to build our future beyond what we are seeing now. There's still ample chance for us to do that, because like President Ledari said, he looks at it as not being real. Yes, it's not being real, but you must be prepared. So we know definitely all efforts have been put into renewable and to eliminate the usage of oil and gas, but it's still going to be here with us for a very, very long time, because the alternatives that are coming up, they're good, but it cannot wipe out the demand for oil. Look at what has happened. We went down to about $22 a barrel. Now we are facing 70-something, going to 80, and it will still go up. So my own concern as a Nigerian is, how do we harness this situation now? Because what OPEC is presenting is good news for us. And I think there are better future beyond what OPEC is presenting, based on known facts and knowledge. So I think it will give us an opportunity to re-engineer our industry here and see how we can use this opportunity to build the Nigerian we are looking up to. And I think there's hope. People should not give up. Our universities everywhere, they should all keep cranking to come up with ideas whereby we fully indigenize the industry so that we can get all the full benefits that goes with it, rather than letting it go outside. We refine, we sell, we export, and let us use it as a big opportunity to boom. We've lost some period already, but I think this is another opportunity beyond the expectation of most people. All the gamings of 1974, 75, 40 years oil, we finished, we're still here, we're still finding more oil, and we're still going to find more oil. And that oil is going to be used, must be used. So I'm appealing to the federal government to go back to the drawing board with this opportunity still there. Let us do a thorough job of this industry, and we'll be fine. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Engineer Alex Neni. We will return to you in the course of the conversation. Now, back to our studios here in Abuja. Dr. Tim Okon, let's try one more time to domesticate the whole issues around the global oil outlook. Now, this is energy forecasting. And some would say that it's an open source intelligence, not just for the world, but for member countries of OPEC. Usually for us as an oil producing country, have we always latched onto the whole idea of energy forecasting to enable that, drive our operations, drive our ideas, and so on and so forth? I'm asking this question against the background of your many years, in the
I would say this is really the time to manage transition. While there is no need for panic, but we must understand what is happening elsewhere. So for the OECD countries, if you're going to have from a 2% to a 10% increase in renewables, And particularly you are dealing with transportation, electric vehicles. And I presented a paper on electric vehicles just yesterday. What that simply means, there are some implications. The first is that countries in Africa and least developed economies would be dumping grounds for vehicles coming in. Of course, there are price impacts. The second and most important point for Nigeria take on this is that we need to process our hydrocarbons. It's so important from the point of view as for those of us who remember the 70s and the cement armada, and I think that Alex was talking to a student those days, and the cement armada, we have succeeded, and I want to use it as a model, we have succeeded in turning our limestone to cement. We no longer have ships in Apapa waiting to, with cement, bulk cement, waiting to berth. That's something that in my lifetime has happened. Similarly, we need to approach oil exactly in that same way. An import substitution strategy, backward integration as they call it, so that you process the hydrocarbons here in Nigeria. That's where the benefits come. That's where all the policies on gas, etc., would matter if we develop a gas conversion industry, in order to turn that gas into industrial goods. We actually do have a national industrial revolution plan. There's a document like that that exists, and it's a blueprint on things including oil and gas. So yes, forecasting is essential. Has it been used effectively in the past? My answer is no. But this is the time to make a change. And let me also volunteer one key information. It's that if we all agree that fossil fuel is a pollutant, and we are not flat earthers, we are not saying that the earth is flat and begin to cover our heads like the ostrich and pretend. These are pollutants. We have problems with environmental pollution in the Niger Delta. So obviously, if you agree that cigarettes causes cancer, is carcinogenic and all that, you don't want to subsidize the product. So when we talk about energy from all kinds of energy sources being applicable, there are usually taxing mechanisms that enables you to negate or try and avoid the negative externalities that are associated with certain activities. So in other words, if you are dealing with oil, which is more of a significant pollutant than, say, gas or other sources, there are mechanisms, policies that need to be developed to tackle this particular problem. So we have not done very well in the past with these forecasting, but we need to get serious. The world is moving on, and I think we have the opportunity yet again to put our energy policy in the right shape for tackling energy transition. It's happening. It may not come to us as speedily as it is going to happen in OECD countries. And mark you need to also recognize that these OECD countries, OECD itself and the IEA, they were created as a means to manage energy demand in the 70s, when President Carter declared that this was the moral equivalent of war, when oil prices went up and economies began to... so they have managed that well, and we need to recognize the opportunity we have now to do likewise. And I think this is where our focus needs to be.
I was just wondering, Kieran, I'm sorry, I know that we want to get to other guests. When we talk about energy transition and energy mix, I keep hearing about the place and role of gas. But gas exploration, production, doesn't just happen on its own. I mean, we hear of the oil and gas industry. Can you separate oil from gas? I know the associated gas and so on and so forth. So how does one understand that to say, okay, there's energy transition, gas is part of that. You've also talked about the need for us to further explore gas. But can you explore for gas on its own solo without also the associated issue of crude oil exploration and production?
Well, yeah, I think yes. The simple answer to that is that the predictive tools that we have to determine what is the proportion of oil and gas that exists are not that as accurate. But there are two things involved in there. Whether you find an wholly oil field, etc., the nature of the dynamics of pressure and temperature in the subsurface is that you can either have that gas associated with oil as solution gas. And so when you produce it under a different pressure and temperature condition, the gas wants to come out. So you have to put it through separators, etc. That is inevitable. I hold out some hope because if you look at the new PIA, there are provisions there on the domestic obligation that and a three-tier system, a tier 1 system for that solution gas, associated gas, the tier 2 system that says all the gas cap needs to be utilized for the domestic market, and then the non-associated gas. So we have captured the necessary incentives for people to go out and actually do what they need to do, which is find hydrocarbons and with the domestic obligation, channel that whatever they find or what they currently have into the domestic market, in which case we'll be able to do this gas conversion industries like fertilizer, methanol, etc., etc. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Let's return to Odion once more, and still in line with the domestication of the energy forecast. The OPEC Secretary General also said that if the necessary investments are not met, in the oil sector, it will have some implication. And he also called for return of investment as a core reason for declaration of cooperation. Now, how far has Nigeria really gone in terms of further investment in the oil sector, and again to ensure that we domesticate some of these energy forecasts that we are talking about? We can also make reference to the issue of being capable of refining our oil, and of course indigenizing the entire oil exploration in Nigeria for us to have a maximum benefit from these forecasts.
I think in terms of domesticating the report, from an investment perspective, investment has been lagging in the sector for quite a while. If you recall, the issue of the PIB, now PIA, slowed down significant investments that could have come into the sector. And if you recall President Buhari's speech when he was signing the PIA into law, he talked about lost investment during the period that the PIB was under consideration. So we've lost a lot of time in terms of, a lot of investments in terms of making investments in the oil and gas sector. That said, there have also been some positives, positive investments, this time by the private sector. So we have Alhaji Aliko Dangote, who is invested or investing in a refinery that will be Africa's largest refinery. You also have the chairman of Boa Group doing investments in that same direction. We have a lot of modular refineries. There's been policies to encourage investments in the midstream sector of the industry, which is where I think we were lagging behind. Previously, we produced oil and gas, and then we shipped it out, and then we brought in white products and other things, gas products as well, including LPG that we used to cook. But now we're seeing a lot of investments going into the midstream, and it's very gratifying to know that the PIA makes provisions for, recognizes that we need investments in the midstream sector. And the midstream sector is really where the action is, converting that raw material, the feedstock, gas feedstock, oil feedstock, into materials that we can use, into petrochemical industries. If you looked at the forecast, one of the growth trajectories for oil is also petrochemical. So in addition to transportation, based on road transport and aviation, petrochemical industry is also one of the growth of the petrochemical industry will also be one of the drivers of the demand for oil. So it's important that we focused on attracting investments in these areas of our economy. and the oil industry, which is the midstream aspect of it. Now, let me just back up a bit. I think the OPEC report is a bit, well, the report was generated by OPEC, so I think there will be some bit of bias for OPEC on the side of OPEC for oil. If we had other renewable experts who are more positive about renewable energy speak, they might give renewable energy a greater share of energy demand. But let's follow where the money is. The money right now is chasing renewables. Even the IOCs are also chasing renewables. While it's not there's no need to panic, it's also important to realize where the world is shifting to. So today, if you want to do a gas or an oil project in Nigeria, you would struggle for financing. You can't get the financing local, you would have to go offshore to raise financing. And guess what? The multilaterals, the private equity firms, a lot of them are focused more on renewable energy. If you find a field you want to do exploration, you're going to struggle very hard to raise financing to do exploration, to bring that field to production. So it turns out that perhaps whilst OPEC is bullish in terms of where it sees oil, the money is speaking to renewables, at least from where we sit today. We're seeing money chase renewables. If you recall, the vice president even wrote something in the energy in the international media, calling on the world to not to stop funding for natural gas and oil, particularly natural gas. So when you look at where the money is chasing, based from and a lot of this money comes from the OECD nations, it looks like they're using investments to now force the world into renewables. So whilst OPEC is bullish in terms of the outlook on oil, I think we also need to be wise and start to look at using our oil resources to develop renewable energy, developing our midstream sector so that we can convert our natural feedstock and then use it for our own internal benefit. And that's where domestication of the report really, really matters. We must be intentional in taking whatever resources that we have from our oil to develop our midstream such that we do not have to depend on OECD countries for our energy needs by 2045.
Okay, thank you very much, Omofoma. You've thrown in the reality check that, well, the money is chasing renewables at this time, and some of the issues you've talked about in terms of financing investments in crude exploration and production are matters I would like Professor Wunmi Eledare to also speak to. Professor Eledare, let's put it broadly. Now, the notion was that the PIA is a game changer, and it's also been praised for creating opportunities for investment in the midstream sector. And here we are, from what Odun Omofoma has again reminded us, big money is chasing renewables, and there's therefore potentially less available big ticket funding for our midstream sector. What does that tell us? And in terms of our policies, in terms of also, if you like, redirection of our chase for appropriate funding and timeliness in energizing our midstream sector?
Thank you very much. I was hoping you would not bring PIA because, but I'll speak to the other issue because the PIA may not be perfect, but it's an excellent beginning. And if you look at, we've done Petroleum Act since 1969, this is 2023, so we cannot throw away the bath water that is dirty with the baby. This is where implementation comes in, looking at this idea of funding, because public perception is very key to be able to attract funding. Now, I understand my friend's concern that this is OPEC's perception. Even the IEA perception is their own perception, and it has to do with energy security. If you look at OPEC presentation and you look at where oil will be coming from to meet the 110 million barrels by 2045, it's all OPEC. The non-OPEC supply outlook is very, very dim because the resources are no longer there. And Dr. Okon alluded to the fact that IEA came into existence when OPEC took control of oil in the 70s. The purpose of IEA is to guarantee energy security. And IEA now foresee the future. And PIA is a signal, if not because of deficient implementation signals that I'm receiving right now. Because if Nigeria with 200 million people is depending on 2 million barrels per day to meet up their energy need for industrialization, and they have 37 billion barrels of oil reserves, something is wrong. So the IEA is foreseeing the turning around of some of these energy source centers, that they may want to be using their energy to improve the quality of life, and there will be nothing left for them. And that's why they are looking for technology to move their energy security away from people that may need their energy to get the type of quality of life. So, it's just like a Tiponi cell. Politics begins local. Energy development is essential for economic development. Producing oil for money is not where PIA wants to go. And that's the investment aspect. People will go to where value can be created for their money. And I want to continue to warn Africa with this energy transition. You must talk the talk, but you must walk the talk of energy transition in an efficient manner. The pace cannot be dictated because somebody has money, because we're going to come back to energy poverty. And that's why OPEC Secretary General was trying to say, yes, climate change is there, but energy poverty is there too. And economic poverty is there. And that's where you have the population center. So to me, this is an opportunity. What OECD is doing is about their energy security. What we should be doing is about Nigeria energy security. And this OPEC outlook gives us a window. And that's where the three institutions in PIA is so critical for the future. And listen, I don't want to go into PIA because I become passionate, because one has worked so hard. The board of NNPC, the board of the Upstream Commission, the board of the authority is what the world will be looking at as to whether they want to bring their money to Nigeria. I don't like the signal that I'm seeing. And I'm calling on the Senate, because of what we are talking about. The opportunity to develop our oil is there. And by the way, the money is there as well. Don't let anybody deceive you. Investors will go to where value can be created. And the PIA has given us the opportunity. The implementation strategy is the key, taking advantage of this global outlook for oil. Oil is going nowhere. Put it in writing, because there's no optimal supply energy mix without oil if the global economy will not collapse. See what COVID did. It wasn't predicted. If you allow energy to collapse without oil, we are deceiving ourselves, because oil is not for electricity generation. Oil is for moving goods and services to grow the economy, and the world will still need it. Right now, if you look at the statistics, oil accounts for 59% of transportation globally. Oil accounts for 19% of industrialization. All of these population centers are not fully industrialized yet. India, China are the driving center for industrialization. I don't see why Nigeria cannot be. And that's what Dr. Okun was saying. The midstream is the key for multiplier effect in the global oil and gas outlook. And we have these resources in abundance. We just need to make sure that we move away from prebendalism and resource mindset in using our resources for posterity. This is a good outlook. The assumptions are clear. Just like the IEA assumptions were based on electric vehicle. It's an assumption, my friend, not reality. And by the way, it's not about growth, because what we are seeing with renewable is growth, not deliverability. Yes, there may be 25% growth in renewable. Where are they starting from? They currently account for less than 10%, even in the projection up till 2050 in a global sense. It is only in the OECD that you are seeing that you saw what happened in London, in the UK. You saw what happened in California. You cannot predict where wind will go. We have abundant petroleum resources globally. The world is not running out of oil, and I don't see the world running oil outside the energy supply mix up to 2050. The facts are there. The assumptions may be stochastic. PIA is a good thing that happened to Nigeria, just like the local content. And you could see the implementation of local content adding value. You need a board of directors of these institutions that will tell the executive, you can't do what you are doing because it's not going to add value. If you don't have that type of board, institutional capture will not allow us to get the type of investment we need to develop our oil. I challenge the Senate to not forget all the engagement that led to those formulations. This is the time to act. The board must be effective, efficient, ethical, and equitable. You cannot have a competent executive and have incompetent board. We're not going to touch where we need to go. Do your job, Senate, for PIA to add value. Do not confirm any incompetent member. The president has done his job, which he has the power to do. You have your job to apply the law to confirm those that are put on those institutions. If the global oil outlook will favor Nigeria, it begins with those three board of directors: the upstream board, the authority board, and the NNPC board. They must be competent to be able to deliver with this optimistic global oil outlook.
All right, Professor Ledere, you mentioned earlier that you didn't think that we were going to raise the issue of a PIA because you're passionate about it, and we have just seen that. You have made your points. I hope that we'll have another day to discuss the issue of adequate implementation of PIA. Thank you very much indeed. Gentlemen, the assumptions of the OPEC is very clear. And there's one thing Barakindo did mention, and that has to do with a holistic view of all the intrinsic perspectives to this conversation that with respect to energy mix. And I'm coming to Engineer Alex Nain here. You may have to also touch on the points raised by other guests, but this is your question. Sanusi Barakindo said, look, additional policy measures supporting faster fuel substitution and penetration of more efficient technology could push global oil demand to below 100 million barrels per day by 2045. What does he mean by that? Is he envisaging that other economic factors or energy factors along the line may actually push oil downwards with respect to the general energy global mix?
Thank you very much for the question. I would say one thing first. That is, Okon spoke, Wumi also spoke, and the other consultant spoke also. In my place here, they say you get good from your house to outside. I think we have always thought, oh, we have to get our money from outside. The people have their own strategy. If they make their strategy, they will work towards it. So when you have oil to produce, and they don't want oil. They are doing electric cars and all that. What is the incentive for them to want to fuel what you want to do to achieve your goal? So it goes back to just common sense. We must, as a nation, define what our priorities are. And I've always mentioned, you cannot give what you don't have. First and foremost, this business is a serious business, and the people to guide this business must be sound people in the industry. Wumi has said so much. I don't want to dwell in that. But what the OPEC, they're saying about investment and more technology to get more oil, that one is given. From time to time, they've always been upgrade on how effectively we can produce oil. So that one, nobody can take it away. And that's where technology comes in. The engineers, everybody have to go to the cutting edge level to do things to produce the volume they are talking about. So there's no question of any shortcut about it. And as Nigeria and the OPEC countries, never you sit down and expect you're going to get all the financial support from the people who don't want the type of growth you need. So they are working opposite. They mentioned it in Qatar and everybody, the direction is how do we reduce the price of oil? How do we dwarf income from oil? That's their strategy. So we must develop our own strategy as OPEC or as Nigeria to ensure, one, we have the right people in these places, we have the right trained people to do the job so we can effectively and do the job and save money at all costs. So what we are doing now is everything we are depending on the people who don't want you produce and make what you want to make. They have their own strategy. So as long as we continue to look up to them without looking inward to ourselves and our capability, we'll be in this quagmire for a long time. But like Wumi said, the PIA is there. There are other things. And being in the industry, I think Nigeria has trained a lot of people that if you harness them, you will be able to do better than what the Western world is thinking about. I think our drive now, like I said, I'm passionate about what Nigeria should do to enhance production, reduce the bloating costs, because the costs we are incurring in the industry is outrageous. I've said that for more than 20, 30 years. So these are the things we must tackle as a nation. If we tackle these things right, we will reduce our costs, we have our people engaged, unemployment will be reduced, we don't have to import anything like fuel, diesel, and all that. These are all past things now. So let us wake up now and say, hey, we have blown the pipe long time ago. We should now go back to the drawing board and do what professionals, what we do best for our respective places where we've worked. The manpower is here. It's just the drive. Like Wumi said, if you put people in the board just because you want to satisfy people, that's not going to do the job because they have to control the other end. And you don't do that without knowledge. You need qualified, knowledgeable people in the industry to help these organizations to operate properly. Otherwise, if it is a yo-yo setup, we're going to get a yo-yo game. But I pray that doesn't happen. We have the people. Let us go out and do what we do best. That way, all the universities, the young people coming out of the university, they should be made to face a challenge. It's a challenge for everybody. Let us use our brain, use our knowledge, use the little money we have to develop this country using the available oil resource because we have time on our side. 50 years from now, we're still going to be there. And this gas, oil thing, you can't take one without the other. You find oil, you can find a big oil field. You can also find a big gas field, but whichever way you go, some gas will come out here, some oil will come out there. So our concern now is how do we utilize human resources, the money we have, not all these ones stolen here and there. Let us plunge this thing back there and generate revenue to turn this country around. We still have that chance. I think that is the direction we should go. Let's focus on ourselves. OPEC has given us indications of what the world is. It is now left to us to use that, go back to the drawing board, plan what we should be doing to counter the negative things the Western countries or other countries who want us to go down will do. I think that's the bottom line. If we can do that effectively, go to hell with them. But if we cannot do that effectively, they will keep us under their seat and sit on us. So that is where we should put our energy. We have people, we have money. Anybody that say we don't have money is a joker, because I hear billions stolen, brought back, and let's plug all this back into the industry that will bring out the money, that will generate work, labor, everything. Then we will be a stable country. And we'll shame these people who've been taking us for granted over the years. We've seen it over and over. I'm just pleading, let us do the right thing. Use the right people. Use our money effectively. That way, we reduce all the social stress and all the things going on. Because when you have people who go to half big school, the universities are not well funded, so let my people go. Some will come out, some will be good. But if we concentrate and turn all these things around, turn out good graduates, use our finance properly, use the people who are knowledgeable, so we can do well. I don't see any problem. I think what OPEC has done is to tell us, gentlemen, you have this opportunity. It is now left to you to harness this opportunity to do well for yourself. If you refuse to, you won't have any reason to blame anybody, because it is now open. I think that's my plea to the country. Most people have spoken, Okon, Wubi, all the things they are saying, they're in line. I think the bottom line is, let us be honest as a country, do the needful to achieve our aspiration. It is doable. There's nothing in the oil industry that we cannot do. There is nothing. We have the people outside, inside. They're just sitting down and say, okay, this is what we want to do. How do we get the people? We scout through. Forget about all these, this must be from here, this must be from here. I said, if you're going to play soccer, the 11 people coming into the field to represent Nigeria, if they are from one parent, do it, and let's get it done. So let us go back and do what we do best, based on merit and capability, knowledge. I think that's where we're lacking. We have what it takes. We have the money. The government, like all these modular refineries and all those coming up now, nobody knew that could happen. They strangulated the modular refinery financially for a long time. But some of them have bust loose, and they are now contributing to the place. So it means we can do it if we change our mindset and the way we run government. This is not, it's not a joking thing. You cannot give what you don't have. You must give what you have. So when you don't have knowledgeable people handling things and you expect things to work, it will not work. We have gone through this cycle over and over. Let us go back to the drawing board. OPEC has given us a clear card. These are the prediction. You now know your enemy. If you know your enemy, like Zeke said, say, God, take care of my friends. For my enemies, I know them. In this case, we know our enemies. We know those who want to drag us back. They will not give us money. They want to face their direction to make sure the price of oil goes down. So if we know this, what do? It's simple. You strategize yourself to beat those odds, and that's all we need to do.
All right.
Thank you.
Engineer Alex Naim, thank you very much there for your comments. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation. has the responsibility to help improve the quality and the quantity of the road infrastructure assets, which are the roads and the bridges and the highways. At the moment, we have over 13,000 kilometers of road network under repair, reconstruction, or rehabilitation out of the existing 35,000 kilometers of federal road network. These 13,000 kilometers are comprising about 850 different contracts which the ministry superintends across Nigeria. We are fulfilling the mandate of our ministry to expand the connectivity of Nigeria's states and by extension the towns and villages through road transport.
Give your kids winning energy. Milo Active Go. With the goodness of malts, milk, and cocoa, helps them make the most of every day. Milo, the energy to go further.
He's falling sick so frequently, either fever or stomachache. I keep him away from junk food.
She also feeds me apples. She says an apple a day keeps...
If you want to keep germs away, then also wash your hands regularly with Dettol soap.
Meaning?
Germs and disease spread through the hand also. For this, use Dettol soap. Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Dettol soap is endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association. Be Dettol sure.
Dear compatriots, our country can be as great as we want.
Let us all commit ourselves to its greatness.
We must be willing to set aside our differences, unite and stay as one.
In our expansive landmass, human and material resources, and plurality lies our strength.
Let our challenges lead us to rediscover our common ground, and together, let's find solutions.
This will take some time, so it requires patience, tolerance, and forgiveness from every one of us.
Let all hands come on deck to protect and transform our country.
Let us unite and see each other not as adversaries, but as brothers and sisters.
Together, we can build a better Nigeria for ourselves and for the next generations.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA, with support from Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Chelsea will look to bounce back from their loss against the defending champions when they take on Southampton at Stamford Bridge. Will they succeed? Find out this Saturday on the Premier League Live. It's Chelsea versus Southampton, showing on the network service of the NTA from 2:30 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Baba Ijebu, empowered by Integral.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We're on the home stretch for the conversation. Let's come back to Dr. Tim Okon. Dr. Tim Okon, the issue of funding has been raised by the other guests against the background of the prevailing bias of the more advanced countries seeking to ramp up availability of renewables. But we do know that oil and gas will remain relevant for us. That's the key point to observe. But how then do we attract investment? How then do we generate investment for this sector? That's one, critical. But far more fundamental, if you will, has to do with the midstream sector, which remains so poorly developed in our environment, but which the PIA is supposed to also act as a leverage to enable us grow that sector. But it's not an overnight thing.
Thank you. I think that this is where the big challenge is. The challenge is that funding institutions, because of their shareholder pressure, etc., are going to be looking critically at whether they fund projects in oil and gas. And this requires a national rethink as to all the monies we earn from selling this crude. And as the former Minister of Budget used to say, you need oil to get out of oil. It is absolutely critical that Nigeria's foreign earnings be used for capital development, because we need to be in a position where we are not hamstrung or tied down because of somebody's decision, external decisions being made by those who have funds. So you need a national effort to redirect our foreign earnings in critical investments in this regard. This is why I say that the forecast has been made. Now we need to incorporate it into our national thinking, the way in which we run the budget, and our commitment, because if you look at NNPC, is the largest equity holder of assets in oil and gas in Nigeria. What the PIA did was to equip it with a basis for which it would be able to function. But it has interests and it has partners. It needs to be able to fund these projects. So we must have a national rethink as to how we direct funds, preferably, of course, funds that are, foreign currency denominated funds, which you can now import the necessary equipment for going to gas and so many other things. The PIA seeks to help this effort by having a midstream fund, which is really for the midstream. But critically, those funds will not be sufficient. And I think the initial proposals was 1%, and then it was reduced to 0.5%, etc. But there must be national effort in redirecting investment into creating the economic opportunities based on utilizing oil and gas resources here at home, even when you may not have counterpart funding. But it's critical for that discussion to take place. And this is all part of what the implementation, etc., and the strategic thinking that is required for Nigeria beyond just passing this legislation. So funding is possible, and I know fully well that those who might not be interested in funding the extraction may be more interested in funding gas projects, etc., because of the credits they can obtain, carbon credit. So there are different options for this, but there has to be national thinking and a strategic review of where our funds should go. It is not in recurrent expenditure and all of these things. It should go to some of these critical sectors to give birth to some of the things that we need to do. The second thing is that the PIA also creates a basis. With high oil prices, there is a windfall royalty scheme that enables you to get money into the sovereign wealth fund. So again, it enables you at prices of $80, as we had, I think, yesterday. You should be able to get an additional 3% or so royalty based on price, which should go naturally to the sovereign wealth fund. And this is where some of the investments that we need to do, especially in the midstream, to create opportunities for employing our people and basically improve the economic outcomes for this country.
Kieran, I was just wondering, that's a point that I would like Professor Wumi Eledare to speak to, if you don't mind. Professor Eledare, when we're taking a look at this outlook, oil will remain, demand is going to rise, and therefore will still be in the oil business against the backdrop of what we are seeing with the current oil price, $70-something pushing 80. But I'm sure that Nigerians themselves will not be smiling just yet. Yes, in terms of government revenue is there, but we do know that it also has an implication for our consumption of refined petroleum products. At a time when the Naira was strong, we had no issues. When you say that crude oil prices were benchmarked against major currencies, the Naira was $1.50. But we have seen the fate of our Naira. When you now come to gas, utilization, you see the issues that we're having with our thermal power plants, the gas supply agreement, no agreement, pay in Naira, don't pay in Naira. Even with our LPG, domestic cooking gas, the importation cost is also now being added to it to say, oh, it's valued in US dollars and versus XYZ. What will all of this mean in the context of our current the current value of our national currency, and therefore, is this going to be happy news going forward, or we need again a strategic approach to evaluate this two-way traffic?
Well, thank you very much. You see, the economy is interconnected. You have four major sectors in any economy. One is the financial market. Two is the resource market. Three is the labor market. And four is the goods and services market. These four markets are so critical in order to be able to get your economy to the next level. But then, and I'm going to answer your question quickly, then you have what they call the monetary aspect of the economy, and you have the fiscal aspect of the economy, which is tax and spend. The tax and spend are normally with the politicians, but the monetary policy is insulated from politics because money supply is critical to the economy as an instrument. So, but when you don't manage your money supply properly well, then you have the type of problems that we have when every indicator of the economy is going the wrong direction. Unemployment rate is high, interest rate is high, GDP growth is going down, and of course, inflation, which is a cancer to the economy, is also going up. And that's why the money supply component must be removed from politics. And that's what we have not done over the years. We've not been able to get a central bank governor that is independent of the political fray. You cannot control your exchange rate, you cannot control inflation, you cannot control unemployment rate, and the problem compounds. I want to go to PIA again. PIA is a good thing that happened to Nigeria at the right time in terms of economic emancipation. And I do not want us to becloud our judgment with OECD's own predictions. And this is why we need a National Energy Planning Commission. And we have. We have the Energy Commission and we have the Energy Council. Let them be apolitical so that they'll be able to solve some of these problems that we have. Because without energy, the economy cannot strive. And that has been our problem. So we must look at things that should not be political and insulate it. Because it is not political expediency when it comes to the pricing of petroleum product, the pricing of energy, and the pricing of even employees in terms of their wages. Politics must be taken out of that. And that's what we're not doing well. Now we have the opportunities, in my opinion. Quickly, if an economy is going to function and function well in terms of adding value, three important things must be taken care of. One is efficiency. Do the right thing. Do things right. And the second is effectiveness, which means doing the right things. And finally,
Professor Ladere, we'd like to thank you. We'd like to thank you, for your submissions because we we are running out of time. You have gone really down neck deep into economic analysis with respect to this conversation. Gentlemen, I hope that we will have time sometime in the future, really, to delve into the intricacies of this very topic this morning so we can cover all the perspectives, concerning the topic. And there's one thing I'd like us to note, that in that broadcast by Barkindo, he made it very, very clear that the outlook underscores significant uncertainties for the demand and supply of oil, and it was clear, indicating that alternative GDP growth trajectories of some countries will create demand and supply uncertainties. On that note, we'd like to thank all of you for being here this morning for the conversation. First, let's thank Dr. Timothy Okon, petroleum economist and managing partner, Tenno Energy. It's been good sharing from your word of knowledge and this very topic. Thank you indeed for coming. And Odion Omofaman, I hope I'm right there, an energy expert. We'll also appreciate you this morning for your contributions. And via Zoom from Ghana, we had Professor Wumi Iladere. It will be nice to have you again when such topic is on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you for reaching us all the way from Ghana for this conversation. And from Warri via Zoom, we had Alex Nayin, MD CEO, Gakmok Nigeria Limited. We also thank you for being part of our conversation this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
All right, so that's it for us on the program today. Thanks for being with us. We are back tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, do take care of yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kirian Umar. Do have a wonderful day.